Coming off of what was a fantastic event at the Open, we saw an amazing comeback by Ryan Fox. We're transitioning to the 3M Open in Minnesota, TPC Twin Cities in Blaine, Minnesota. It's not going to have as much excitement as the Open, but still going to be a great event. To help me break down expectations for this golf tournament, I've got Ginger Joe, who is our golf expert here at the Sports Geek. Before we get into it, make sure you hit the like button on this video and subscribe so you don't miss out on future content. Joe, let's start talking about this course as we always do. TPC Twin Cities, what should bettors be expecting when they're looking for golfers? What are some of the best traits that they should be paying attention to?
Yeah, look, we've got a good tournament this week, Joe. It's not necessarily a star-studded field, but the 3M Open takes place at TPC Twin Cities, and it is actually a good opportunity for players to pick up some final FedEx Cup points before the playoffs. And, of course, we do have the presence of world number one Scotty Scheffler, who does make the trip to Minnesota after what was probably quite a disappointing Open Championship for him, really, Joe. But that does just sort of explain the caliber of player that he is. He didn't play well at all. He was actually first in driving. He was fourth in tee to green, and then he was dead last for putting. But the fact that he was able to finish so high up the leaderboard is just astonishing, really. And before we go into my selections for this week, I would just say I do think the most likely winner this week is going to be Scotty Scheffler. But he's just too short. I don't like backing players at 2-1, 3-1 when we've got fields of 150 plus players. It doesn't quite feel right. We do have Kurt Kitayama returning. He won this event last year, but this is a wide open contest outside of Scotty Scheffler. 7,341 yard par 71. And despite this being a really scoreable course on the PGA Tour, Joe, it does actually demand plenty of respect. The winning score is generally between 17 and 24 under par. And there have been some really low scores here too. Adam Svensson and Lee Hodges have both carded a 60 round Twin Cities, just underlining how players can actually put a good score together around here. But what is interesting about this course really is they do have a good balance between sort of opportunity and danger. The fairways are pretty generous. Initially, it welcomes players are supposed to feel quite aggressive off the tee. However, on 15 of these 18 holes, Joe, the water does come into play. Now, it's I suppose a case of when do you want to take your chance? When do you want to be a little bit more conservative? But ultimately, I think if you have a consistent ball striker this week, you're going to hit more greens because generally good ball striking does promote better distance control. The greens here are quite big, they're quite flat. But if you if you pull or push your shots when you're taking dead aim, providing you've got good distance control, you're still going to actually hit plenty of greens around here. So to find your selections, there's a few ways you can go about it, really. You can find someone who's accurate and consistent, or you can find someone who's a little bit more aggressive and obviously a good ball striker too. I'm going to take the aggressive route this week, Joe. I think that is the way that we're going to find good scorers. So plenty of distance off the tee is actually welcomed, even though it's not a requirement. But those that strike the ball well will probably hit enough greens around here to at least put a good score together. And they're going to need to do that with Scotty Scheffler in the field. So I've come up with a 4-man squad, 2 other long shots if they like in the Article 2. But hopefully this 4-man squad can give us a good return in the win market and the place market this week.
Yeah, let's get into that 4-man squad. But as you just mentioned there, for anybody who's looking for additional analysis, go on over to thesportsgeek.com where, Ginger Joe, you did your write-up on the 3M Open. Some other names that we're not going to be mentioning here today are featured in that article. First guy that has the strongest odds to win this event, Jake Knapp. This season, he's only got 1 top 5 finish, 5 top 10s, no wins. Why do you like Knapp for this event to potentially get his first big win?
Sure. I mean, I'm not a massive one to follow stats, Joe, really. But it is nice when you find a player that seems to fit the course nicely, and then the stats go up and back that too. And that's exactly what we get with Jake Knapp. World number 46. And his ball striking really makes him a really appealing option here at Twin Cities first and foremost. I expect players that consistently gain strokes from tee to green are going to give themselves birdie opportunities over the 4 days. It's as simple as that. And Jake Knapp is without doubt one of the best ball strikers in the field. When you break down his game, it's easy to see why this course obviously suits him as well. I've obviously mentioned that his ball striking is a major strength, but he's also really good from tee to green. He's actually strokes gained 35th on approach. He's 20th in strokes gained total, and he's then also 5th in strokes gained with the putter too. So from tee to green, he's good. But he's also been rocking the putter really well too. What I like about Jake Knapp as well is that he's an aggressive player. Like I said, it depends how you want to sort of find your squad this week. But Jake Knapp, really, really aggressive. And on a course where birdies are absolutely essential, I think he is a player that you need to have on side. There's one stat I like about him, Joe, too, is that from the rough, he actually sits second in scrambling. Now, I don't think he's going to miss too many greens here this week. But if he does, you know he's got the capability to get up and down as well, to save those pars. And that can be just as important sometimes as making the birdies, is not dropping shots where they're sort of unnecessary. I think Jake's going to have a really good score around here. He drives the ball impeccably well, really good with his irons, and his short game is just unbelievable. For a player that you look at and just think he's all long game, he's all ball striking, he's all distance, he's actually been so good with his approach shots, and he's been even better with his putting, and his putting just seems to improve as the season goes on. So he, for me, is the box ticker this week. Aggressive, good at putting. If he misses the greens, he's going to get up and down, no problem too. I'd be disappointed if Jake Knapp is not somewhere near the top of the leaderboard this week, Joe. So he is selection number one.
John Kiefer at plus 6,500 odds. 2 top 5 finishes this season. He's got 3 top 10s as well. Another guy who hasn't notched a win so far, but what has your attention for Kiefer?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, a similar mold to Jake Knapp. They've both got the JK initials as well. That was by accident. But another that's really good from tee to green. Plenty of length about him. Now, there is a slight difference between Jake Knapp and John Kiefer. They both gain strokes from tee to green. They're both really good on approach play. John Kiefer's putter has been a little bit cold at times. It is significantly poorer in comparison to sort of the other stats that he has on the PGA Tour. But if you go and look at some of the results he's had, he has actually been finishing in the top 20 on a few occasions. And you don't do that unless you're putting somewhat pretty solid. So I went down, I broke down some of his statistics. Now, a lot of the times where he has been putting poorly on really undulating greens, if you have big flat greens on bent grass, he seems to be fine on them. He's not sort of above average on the stats, but everything else he does is above average. So if he brings his putting to a decent enough standard this week, then he can absolutely put a good score together. He's been shooting 15 and 16 under par rounds at courses where he's got no right to be doing so with the putting that he's had. But you got flat greens this week. This is all about attacking for me from the fairway. That's what he's going to do. And his proximity to the hole is actually 8th on the entire tour. So he's got no problem attacking flags. And providing he has an average week on the greens, I don't see why he can't get competitive, Joe. So he offers a little bit more value than Jake Knapp. Everything seems to be on, the upgrade. His putting just needs to come together. But these sort of greens, you shouldn't have no issue. I know he's low down in the rankings, but they're quite flat. It's not like this is a guy who can't putt. It's just in comparison to some of the better putters, he's not always been in top notch. He's got a good chance this week, Joe. He can certainly score well around this golf course.
Another interesting pick with Aldrich Potgieter, plus 8,000 odds to win the event. 1 top 5 finish, 2 top 10s. Why are you backing him as a potential winner?
Look, this is all-out attack and aggression from Aldrich Potgieter. That is what we see of him. And if there's going to be a player this week that can go out there and post a 60, well, he can absolutely do that. He's got such a big advantage off the tee. And when you actually look at this course, Joe, even though there's a lot of water down the left and a lot of water down the right, most of the holes, he can probably over-carry where the water even starts to come into play. So I don't think he's going to have as much issues off the tee as the majority. Now, if he's hitting that driver well, he's obviously going to have shorter wedge shots into these greens as well. And his short game has actually improved. He's not just about power. His short game is pretty good. He's got quite a nice touch around those greens too. If he can get the balance right this week as well with that good driving off the tee and his approach play, I don't see why he can't score a good number here this week. Shot shape isn't something that concerns me either. But Potgieter is definitely a player that when he's driving the ball well, everything else seems to follow suit. And this is exactly the sort of course where he could take real advantage of that driving distance this week. So I like the aggression play this week. He is a welcomed member and a welcomed addition to the squad with the other players that we have.
And last guy that you're going with here, Casey Jarvis at plus 6,500. He's got 1 top 10 finish, 3 top 25s. What attracts you to Jarvis as a potential guy who could win this?
Yeah, this is a player that I know really well, obviously being a big follower of the DP World Tour. He's actually won twice this year, and it has been coming, Joe, over the last few seasons. He's just been thrown in the odd poor round or putting in a big number. But again, That's because he's a volatile player. He's attack, attack, attack. But he won the Kenyan Open, and I wondered if that was a little bit of a fluke. He then went back to his homeland a week later and actually won the South African Open there as well. He's actually going to be joining the PGA Tour for next season too. So this is really good experience for him, and he's a multiple winner on tour as well. I like his mindset. It is just aggression, but he's got a deft touch around the greens. We've seen that by obviously what he's done in Kenya and South Africa. And he is a player that's seemingly handling the undulations of links golf well too. He came into the Open this week, played really well, had an awesome final round to get him up to tied 6th or tied 7th, something like that. It just shows this is no fluke. He's a player that's really growing his game in the last 2 seasons. What I would say, though, Joe, for anyone who's following us in with Casey Jarvis, is you are going to need a little bit of patience. There are going to be bogeys and there are going to be double bogeys with Casey Jarvis. But as we saw in Kenya, as we saw in South Africa, as we've just seen in the Open, his birdie rate is so high that it does tend to counteract the majority of those. So again, if he can't get to at least 15, 16 under around this course, I'd be disappointed by Casey Jarvis. I know enough about this player to suggest he's going to have a good chance this week, and he can absolutely put together some good numbers. So yeah, good value again. Also, Joe, these players are all... price has been taken into consideration with Scotty Scheffler being in the field. You don't want to be backing anyone at, like Kurt Kitayama, for example. He's 18-1 this week, far too short. I know he's won here, but to assume that he's just going to come back and put in that performance again at that sort of price is just not very intriguing. But this 4, I think they're really good value in comparison to what they offer in comparison to their market price at the moment. So this squad, I think, will give us a good run for our money.
Folks, do us a favor, comment below who you think is going to win the 3M Open. Leave us a note below in the comments on this video. Hit the like button on this video too if you enjoyed our analysis today, and subscribe so you don't miss out on future golf picks for all the remaining tournaments this season. We'll talk to you later. Enjoy the rest of your week.